Welcome everyone to Utility Sports, and boy, are we back for NBA trade season, and it is a doozy with news from Shams Charania. Welcome everyone to the stream, and Shams here reporting the Atlanta Hawks are trading four-time NBA All-Star Trae Young to the Washington Wizards for CJ McCollum, who is an expiring contract, and Corey Kispert, who is on a very team-friendly contract moving forward. A very solid role player, of course. But, of course, Trae Young is the headliner here. Not only is he a four-time All-Star, he is also the guy who is the engine, the offense behind Atlanta's run to the Eastern Conference Finals about a half decade ago now at this point, back in 2021. So very crazy stuff we've got going on. Welcome everyone to the stream already. Make sure you guys leave a like on the stream. What up? Says No More Kings. Glad to have you back in here. Jamal, welcome back. Glad to have you in here. Ash says great trade for both teams, especially DC. I will be grading the trade here very shortly, but I am so glad to see you guys all in here. Thank you so much. Big J is a big-time Wizards fan. Shout out to Big J. Let's get some Big J hype in the chat right now. B-Ball Mute Man, glad to have you back in here. B-Ball over TV says if that's the only trade package, I think it may be just as bad as Luka. Mo here says, Sheldon, where have you been? I was gone on vacation for Christmas, but also I was sick pretty much the entire month of December. I'm starting to feel a little bit better now, but my voice has been kind of hit or miss, honestly. So feeling good enough to do a stream. And as soon as this news came across, I knew I had to go live. So welcome everyone in here. And the biggest thing here for Atlanta is turning the corner without Trae Young, and specifically here, Shams talks about providing Atlanta with financial flexibility to pursue a large salary going into the trade deadline. Now, the trade deadline is February 5th, so when he says next several months, he might be alluding to the fact that Atlanta could perhaps carry this into the offseason in pursuit for Anthony Davis, although I think that makes less sense. I do think Dallas could view Atlanta as a real landing spot for Anthony Davis, given all of the different news. And AD, of course, as a prime in-season trade target, I think just makes the most sense now that they have the CJ McCollum salary, although there's a lot of little stuff that goes on in these trades. So we will see. I am going to stream at the trade deadline again, just like usual. And I'm going to be giving my grades here. I do want to make sure that we have all of the news in on this trade. But again, this is a huge shift with Trae Young having been traded now from the Atlanta Hawks to the Washington Wizards, and is reunited with Travis Schlenk, who was part of Atlanta's front office. In fact, he was the top executive when the Hawks pulled the trigger on Trae Young in the 2018 NBA draft. But let's talk about my trade grades, and specifically for this one. There's a lot of different ways to feel about this. For the Wizards, this is an A+ deal for them, in my opinion. And for the Hawks, this is a TBD C-. And here's the thing about this. There's a lot of different things going on in this trade that we should consider and include in my evaluation about this. But I think for the Hawks specifically, they've invested so heavily in trying to make this team work around Trae Young. And then we got to this past offseason. They didn't extend Trae Young, which I thought was a huge red flag. If you go back to all my videos before this season, I repeatedly brought up the fact that Trae Young did not get an extension with Atlanta. And I thought it was very weird, very interesting. But I didn't necessarily believe that it was going to lead to a trade in the season. And that's what we've gotten here. He got traded even a month before the NBA trade deadline. Of course, this news happened very quickly. Earlier this week, there were reports that the Hawks and Trae Young had agreed together to work to find a trade, and it materialized very quickly. And if you want to know why it materialized quickly, it's because the Wizards got an absolute home run steal here. Washington essentially turned Bradley Beal contract into a future Warriors asset, plus Suns stuff, plus Poole, who became CJ. let me add Trey Young in here. Plus Trey Young for by eating Poole, who became CJ. Let me, I want to make sure I phrase this correctly for people who are just seeing over on Twitter. Creative stuff by winger Dawkins and the Wizards, who badly needed an organizer, get an elite one in Trae. Cautious about committing future money to Trae. Kind of understandable. But this requires more moves to actually propel them forward. Reminder, they owe the Spurs a swap option this year. I don't really love it, to be honest. Like, for Atlanta, like, I don't think it's an absolute F. Like, I don't think Trae Young's a top 15 player in the world, but I do think he's an extremely good player. And I think he's a very underrated player. And I honestly, for Atlanta, I just am a little surprised that this materialized in a way where they didn't get really any true long-term assets for him. Like, don't get me wrong, I think Kispert's really good. I'm going to actually send out a tweet on this too. The reason this isn't an F for Atlanta is because Corey Kispert is a good player. Great in transition, shoots it well, underrated on D, IMO. Like, I think that, like, Kispert's a really solid player, which is why this isn't an F when it comes to my trade grades. I do like him, and here's the thing about McCollum, like, you know, veteran, whatever, like, this is not a deal that makes a ton of sense, but from just a, hey, this is going to propel Washington or Atlanta forward right now, it's really a to be determined, because we're going to see what's going on. Jubes, welcome to the stream. Glad to have you in here. John says, think it's great for both teams. CJ was great for us. He'll do well with the Hawks. I do think he'll do well with Atlanta, but I don't think he's going to be with Atlanta for very long. And then, again, part of the issue, he's about 8 years older than Trae Young. So let's say even that CJ McCollum plays great down the stretch of the season for them. He's on an expiring contract. I don't think he fits into the long-term plans, of course. Another important part of this here, which I'm going to include, another important detail here is the long-term salary relief that ATL gets by moving off of Trae. Then again, they committed 30 M's a year to Dyson. So I don't know. Like, I'd rather have Trae Young than Dyson Daniels on my team. So we'll see what happens. Obviously a big part of this is the way that Jalen Johnson's played. He's been tremendous this season. Extremely overrated on defense. People don't talk enough about some of his defensive struggles, which haven't been just a this year thing, by the way. It's going back to even pre-draft, but this year especially has been bad. So, this is a great point by Joe here, talking about Trae should sit out this year. So the Knicks have a top 8 protected pick from the Wizards. The Wizards are not going to try and win. Even getting Trae Young, this is still a long-term move. And John here says Sar will love Trae. Funny enough, Sar and Trae should have been teammates a couple drafts ago. The Hawks should have just taken Alex Sar. He was number 1 on my big board. I said it didn't even make sense to not take him. Even if he didn't work out for you, you can draft the guy. You have a 4-year rookie contract on him. And then after that, you can extend him or sign him through restricted free agency and match an offer sheet. They should have just drafted the best player. They didn't do that. It didn't make sense. But now ultimately, Alex Sar and Trey Young are destined to be teammates. And that specifically is one that I love this for. I'm going to quote tweet my own tweet here to talk about this more. I specifically love this for Keyshawn George and Alex Sarr. I think those two will really strive off the gravity that Trae has with the ball in his hands. Draws doubles, passes in the short roll and deep roll. Game better than 99% of the NBA. Elite fit next to two rising Wizards. So, like, there's a lot of good stuff here for Washington, specifically with Trae and his fit, which I do want to talk about. And part of the reason that I do think this is such a great trade for the Wizards, Washington's getting a player who is going to organize a lot of their team, give them a guy who you put the ball in his hands and you understand where your offense is coming from. And, you know, some people are going to say, that I'm looking at it backwards. Here's the thing. People thought the same thing about Dallas. They thought, oh, the Mavericks are going to have this elite defense. They're going to be so big. They're going to be able to block so many shots. But then what happened to Jason Kidd's offense? It completely evaporated because they didn't have the guy that was running the show, simplifying everything, and an easy option of, hey, let's just go to a high pick and roll, high ball screen. Let's spam that, look for long rolls, and force teams to provide nail help and gap help and show bodies to number 77. Once the Mavericks didn't have that, all of a sudden Daniel Gafford doesn't look as valuable. Derek Lively doesn't look as valuable in Dallas without that type of gravity on the ball. And I think Trae Young, very similar in a lot of ways. Early in Jalen Johnson's career, he really thrived as a pick and roll pairing, playing with Trae Young. And the Hawks, even to start the year, they kind of shifted their play away from Trae Young a little bit, which was another head scratcher, big moment for me. Of was like, something's not right here in Atlanta. Ultimately, we now see what the conclusion of that looks like. But for Washington, and specifically for Brian Keefe, who I think right now does need some assistance in terms of building a congruent offense that makes sense moving forward, Trae Young's a really easy answer. Now, is it the best answer? Is it a, hey, we're going to win a championship soon answer? Probably not. But I'm telling you right now, you got to stop grading players based on whether or not you think they're going to immediately win a championship or not. And I tweeted this earlier too, and part of it was because I was expecting a trade soon. Only 15 players out of 450 win a finals every year. But I'm supposed to believe that only certain players have fatal flaws. You know, everyone's going to hyper fixate on Trae Young defensively and say, hey, he's a little bit of a ball hog. You know, he doesn't guard, all this, all that. Giannis Antetokounmpo was about a toenail away from never winning a finals if Durant's two-pointer was a three-pointer back in 2021. So, like, today, would we be saying that Giannis can't win because he hadn't won? Like, you see how stupid that whole kind of idea and narrative is once you actually boil it down. People were saying the same thing before the 2011 finals, that Dirk was too soft, that he couldn't win. He's never won anything at a high level. You can't bet on the Dallas Mavericks. And then he went on to have one of the best playoff runs in NBA history. And we've seen Trae Young already have some elite playoff runs of his own. He's one of the most dynamic players with the ball in his hands, one of the most creative passers. And now he's doing that for Washington moving forward and not doing that for Atlanta. And if you want to be completely honest about it, Atlanta has not done a great job putting the best collection of pieces around him. Now, I think Jalen Johnson's a really great player, but we talked about the defensive shortcomings. That's part of it. Atlanta also hasn't been able to stay healthy, especially this year. No Porzingis. Trae Young, of course, been in and out a little bit. Nickeil Alexander-Walker looks great, but last year, let's call a spade, they had a 31% three-point shooter in the backcourt next to him. Years prior, they had DeJounte Murray, who was just a terrible fit, all things considered. I think for Atlanta's issues, everyone kind of just takes the easy cop-out answer of, hey, that's Trae Young's fault. Trae Young is responsible for this, that, and the other thing because he was the top player on the team. And they don't look at the overall context of the roster. So I just don't like this for the Hawks much. Again, for my grades, like, I honestly think I'm being pretty nice with the grades here. But I give the Wizards an A+. This honestly should be probably an A+++ because they gave up essentially nothing long-term. I do think Corey Kispert's a good player. And the Hawks get a to be determined because I do think they're going to probably make another move around CJ's contract. But they also get a C- here because they get older, which is hard to do when you're trading a great player to get older. That's crazy. And then also, I do think Kispert's a really good player, but you're not replacing that kind of caliber of talent. So Trae Young's going to be very, very talented. Aquino says, my guy Unlimited, where you at? Appreciate you guys so much. Again, make sure to smash that like button. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really do appreciate you guys a ton for all of the continued support and everything. You guys are absolutely awesome. So appreciate you guys a ton. Welcome everyone to the stream. If you are new in here, I would love for you guys to hit that subscribe button. We'll see what happens. But Washington, who, by the way, is trending upward, they've been playing really well as of late. A lot of very, very good stuff from them. You specifically look at Alex Sarr. I made a video earlier in the year on him, talking about some of the great stuff that he was doing on both ends of the floor. I think he's a real talent moving forward. Trey Johnson's had some awesome moments in the last couple of weeks, especially some real three-point shooting range. It'll definitely be interesting to see how the Wizards offense looks once Trey is actually acclimated on the floor a bit and what Trey Johnson's off-ball gravity can actually provide for them. If I was Atlanta, Trey Johnson would have been the guy I wanted back in a trade with the Wizards, but of course that's not who they get. And Atlanta, funny enough, you know, how funny would it be, by the way, guys? I'm just going to try and speak this into existence real quick. How funny would it be if the Spurs got the #1 pick this year from the Hawks because of this swap option in a year that all Hawks fans are expecting themselves to have the top pick from the Pelicans? How funny would that be? And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility if you look at the standings. Mr. Ray says, hope you and your family are well, Sheldon. Happy New Year. And man, we are starting off 2026 with a banger of a trade. We are. And big thing here too, guys. Remember, I will be live throughout the entire week of the NBA trade deadline. We're less than a month away from the trade deadline. Man, it comes around so quick, doesn't it? But I am very, very excited. This was the big hang up here and hold up, and the reason why Atlanta traded Trae Young because of that extension. But here's the thing: Atlanta not extending him kind of showed their hand, and the issue is now they traded him for, I think, a dime to the dollar. I don't think that they got nearly enough for him. Had they traded him 12 months ago, they would have gotten significantly more. And I'm honestly disappointed in other teams not trying to find ways to make this work. I think Dallas was a team that should have been heavily involved in this kind of pursuit. From the reports and rumors, they had pretty much no interest. I thought Minnesota should have showed interest in Trae Young here. Thought he would have really elevated Gobert on the offensive end of the floor. And I think Gobert would have protected Trae Young to a certain extent, although I don't necessarily believe protection is the best form of team defense. You don't want to have to be protecting a guy, and that is something Washington will have to overcome with Trae to a certain extent. But man, I just think there's a lot of talent that Washington's picking up here for very, very little long-term cost. Unlimited here says, hey, Sheldon, feels great not giving up a pick or any young players. As long as we sit him and keep our pick, I'm golden. If we get Wilson, Boozer, or JQ to help out defensively, it will be golden. Definitely an interesting component to this, too, that I do want to talk about. Of course, I cover the NBA draft religiously on the channel. Like, if you look at what this team could be within the next 7 months, right? You could have Trae Young, Trey Johnson. You got, obviously, Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, plus one of Boozer, Peterson, DeBonsa. Watch out. That would be, I mean, that's a really good team moving forward. That's a lot of talent if that came to fruition. Shout out to Poyers here saying he already took off from work to watch my coverage of the NBA trade deadline. Effing love it. Appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much for being in here. And again, I'm so excited for the NBA trade deadline. If you guys haven't already, make sure to go follow over on Twitter. Link is in the description. And Kobe here says, yep, Hawks just pressed the eject button. Now, here's the thing about here's the thing about Atlanta, right? This is not like a complete, hey, they're screwed. And I want to go back over to what Shams Charania said specifically about Atlanta. And the biggest thing here is talking about financial flexibility and then the pursuit of Anthony Davis. And I don't think this is part of why I gave this a TBD grade. I don't think this is like a, hey, cut and dry, the Hawks are done this season. I think that they are probably working with Dallas. They probably are on the phone with Dallas right now as we speak, trying to talk about deals and trying to figure out, hey, what would a pathway to landing Anthony Davis look like? What salaries need to come back? Could it be a Porzingis plus a Porzingis plus Arisa Shea, for example, for Anthony Davis. What does that look like? What kind of draft picks are involved? Maybe they get the swap worst back from the Spurs. So whatever that Spurs pick ends up being is maybe what Dallas would get. That's kind of the framework I would expect right now. Interesting beginning framework to maybe watch for would be something along the lines of Porzingis plus Risa Shea plus swap worst from Spurs for Davis. We'll see if that pick comes to Dallas, but the framework, we'll see if the pick comes to Dallas. I'm not sure. I don't think that Pelicans pick will be traded. I would be pretty surprised by that, especially now that Trae Young is gone. But I think every single team, one thing I don't understand, the most success that Anthony Davis has had throughout his career, outside of the year he won the finals with LeBron, is when he had Rajon Rondo as his point guard in New Orleans. And every single team that continues to acquire Anthony Davis doesn't seemingly want to have an elite point guard. Mavericks gave up Luka to get Anthony Davis. The Hawks now gave up Trae Young prior to potentially getting Anthony Davis. And to me, I would want an elite facilitator alongside Anthony Davis, because AD goes through stretches of games where he kind of disappears, evaporates from the offense a little bit. And that's not necessarily an AD issue, but it's how defenses guard him, the areas of the floor that he occupies as a big man, typically as a 4 playing alongside another 5. That complicates your spacing and how you initiate offense through him. And if you had someone who draws attention and eyes like a Luka or a Trae Young does, it would make it easier to get the ball to Anthony Davis in certain spots, off the nail, for example, in the low post, trying to figure out ways to manipulate team defenses to give Davis a little bit more space to catch and turn and play. But teams haven't done that. And if Atlanta walks away with Anthony Davis, they don't have Trae Young now, which to me, it doesn't make sense for Atlanta to go get Anthony Davis at this point, because they're definitely not a contender. They're not even in that ballpark at all. But definitely a very interesting situation. Luca here says you should do more live streams in season. I definitely want to. This is something I've kind of played around with the idea of. Maybe we could plan on doing some more stuff like this. Brian here. Shout out to Brian. Thank you for being so active over in the Discord. Appreciate you being in here in the chat too, commenting on videos like you always do. Says Trae peaked already. It happens, but he's still solid. Yeah, that's the thing. Like I don't think Trae Young's going to be better than what he's been moving forward, but I think what he's been is really, really solid. You look at points created per game, which I think is one of the most underrated stats. Everyone looks at assists and points and kind of talk about them separately, like they're in different buckets. Ultimately, assists means you created points. And if you look at points created per game in the last 5 years, it's literally like Nikola Jokic and then Trae Young right behind him in points created per game by season. He has been dominant, elite, and doing it at his size especially is so impressive. He's one of the most talented players in the entire league when it comes to scoring and facilitating. And now he's doing that with Washington, which is going to be extremely fun. Robert, shout out to you. Glad to have you in here. He says, hit that like button. Here, BB Over TV says, I wonder if he'll take the player option. Definitely a real possibility. I think that's what Atlanta was concerned about, which is why they settled for a trade like this. Now, if I was the Hawks, I would have said, hey, okay, take that player option. We'll figure it out once you do that. They decided to not opt that way, but that's not the way I would have gone. Now the Porzingis moves looks a little more stupid since the win now thing is now thrown out the window. We'll see too, because they might just try and still think that they can win without Trae, which I don't believe that they can. But they're definitely going to try and be more of a defensive oriented team. And if they get Davis, that's what they're really indexing on, which I think Dallas is a great example of how that doesn't necessarily make sense in the year 2026. But that's a different story. My back pocket here says Timberwolves fumbled the Trae Young trade now. The one thing about this for Minnesota, it was going to be hard for them to make a salary work. Gobert wasn't going to be on the table. That would have been a mistake for Minnesota to trade Rudy Gobert. So then you're looking at Randall plus stuff, and then you're trying to break down your roster a little bit. Maybe Dillingham would have been involved. But again, that was Atlanta interested in Julius Randle, who was recently extended. By the looks of it, they're looking for expiring short-term salaries and getting financial flexibility to pursue something different. And that's what they got. So, Minnesota might just not have been in the conversation. It's just really not great. And when it comes to the Hawks trading for Anthony Davis, do I think that actually makes sense? No. But again, that's what the reporting is kind of leaning us to believe at this point, at least. Shout out to everyone here watching the stream. Appreciate you guys. Over 330 people watching live right now. And again, the trade deadline will be even crazier, even more hectic. So I appreciate you guys all so much for being in here. Thank you all so much for hopping into the stream and spending some time with me here on a Wednesday night in the beginning of January. Again, February is going to be absolutely crazy. I'll be live that entire week. But yes, the trade is official here, according to Shams Charania. Let's go back over to Shams. Shams is an absolute beast, always does a tremendous job reporting, one of the best reporters out there, if not the best. So, again, Hawks end Trae Young era, send All-Star to the Wizards. And I think this is a real great thing for Washington regarding the Washington Wizards. This is something I really do want to say on stream here with 339 people watching live. I loved Michael Winger hire as president, and he's delivered. Sarr chose Washington over Atlanta. Ace Bailey wanted to be a Wizard. Glad that didn't happen. I was not a huge Ace Bailey fan in the draft. I thought he was decent. I still had him in my lottery, like a lottery grade in the draft. I had him top 14, but I did not have him top 10. And then also now Trae Young. Wizards are on the up. Really great stuff for Washington. They are becoming a destination. Players want to play there. I just don't understand. Like Sam is saying there, I don't really understand why some of the Anthony Davis love and all this stuff. But the Wizards are becoming a really great spot. Robert. First of all, Robert's been watching the channel since we had around 400, 500 subscribers, maybe even earlier than that, honestly. One of the very first subscribers that I even remember engaging with in the comment section and everything. And very nice words here from him saying Sheldon should be working on someone's NBA team. That's the hope. That's the plan at some point to be working as a scout in the front office in some form or fashion. And then coaching ultimately is really what I want to do. That's what my greatest skill is, I think. I coach high school basketball right now, coached high school basketball for a while, found a lot of success doing that, and I'm just waiting for my opportunity because when I have it, I will not miss. Ethan, can Wizards snag a center like a Okongwu, Rob Williams, or Derek Lively? Ethan, first of all, I don't think that they'll be doing that this offseason or this season, excuse me. If anything, I think the offseason is more likely where they would have better information on where their draft pick is. And then again, not trying to aggressively take steps forward. Robert Williams, injury from an injury perspective, probably just not the guy to go after. If we're going to be completely honest, maybe you could get him for the low and maybe hope to have him for 30, 40 games a year, but that's kind of lofty at this point. I don't think Dallas will trade Derek Lively, to be honest. And Okongwu, had he been in any kind of deal to Washington, he probably would have been included in this one. I think Washington, again, is going to reassess in the offseason, see where they're at, see what draft picks they have, and then figure out who they want next to Sarr long-term. And I think that's the better option anyway, instead of panicking or trying to find that fit right now. Let some time play out, see where we get in the offseason. A few teams will be disappointed about how their year ends. There'll be a couple more sellers, a couple more aggressive buyers, and maybe Washington can take advantage of that at that point in time. Teased here says, looking forward to your trade deadline stream. It's tradition of mine to get my favorite food spot and watch your stream all day. Love to hear that. Looking forward to having you in there again, my man. Atlanta analyst. You've been watching the channel for a long time. Chauncey, really appreciate you, as always, being in here. He's a really great dude. Let's show some love to Atlanta analyst. He's been a diehard Trey Young fan for so long. And I'm very, very sad for him because I know he really loved Trae Young, loved watching him, and he really cares about his Hawks. So let's show some love to Atlanta analysts. Put in some W's or hearts in there for him right now. I'm going to start one off with a W and a heart. Atlanta analyst, my man, sorry for you. Sad to see him go, but you get to watch him up the road there in Washington, a little further north. Jimmy says, watching Sheldon over all my Wizards podcasts. Love this channel. Appreciate you, Jimmy. And low-key, I've been kind of like a Wizards podcast a little bit. I've been loving what they've been doing the last few years. You can go back to some of my old tweets, talked very highly about a lot of their decisions over the last 3 years or so, especially the Bradley Beal trade, which was met with actually a lot of criticism by other media members. They didn't understand why Beal didn't have value as a contractual thing. And I think this Trae Young situation is actually quite a bit different than that. Not only is Trae Young a way better player than Bradley Beal ever was, he's a more dynamic player, specifically as a facilitator passer. He's more clearly a point guard than Beal, kind of as a combo guard. A little bit of issues that ran into in Phoenix with them not having a traditional point guard from a size perspective alongside Beal and Booker. I think Washington, who badly needed a ball handler like this, just makes a lot of sense. And they have guards next to him who are a bit longer. Trey Johnson, not huge, but he's got prototypical shooting guard size. And then Keyshawn George is a big, long guard who can defend. And moving forward, listen, the Wizards are going to need to see steps forward from some of their young guys like Coulibaly, like Keyshawn George, like Alex Sarr on the defensive end from a consistency standpoint. But there's a lot of stuff to love. And I think they're really on the up and up. And they're probably going to have a top 4, top 5 pick this year in the draft as well, which is a really great situation for them. Dallas here says Wiz collecting all the worst defenders in the league. I mean, they have some good ones. They're kind of in they're in the spot where like they're playing so many young players, their team defense isn't good. But I think if you bet on Sarr long-term defensively, you're going to be very happy. It reminds me of when people were saying Jalen Duren sucked on defense, but it turned out he was just a 19-year-old center trying to play 30 minutes a night in the NBA. That's very hard to do. Alex Sarr is kind of in that same boat right now. Keyshawn George, I think, will be a good defender in the NBA down the road. Trey Johnson is going to take him some time to get there. I'm not sure if he'll ever be a plus defender, but hopefully he can get to being at least league average defensively. And then I do think Coulibaly is one of those special type of defensive wings. Now it's going to, again, take him a little bit of time to fully unlock everything. Cam Whitmore, I don't think will be a long-term part of that Wizards team, but we'll see. Xavier here says, heard Trey will not sign extension with Wizards next year. Part of that is salary stipulations. There were some reports that Luka wouldn't extend with the Lakers either, and then he ended up extending with them regardless. So we'll see what happens with Trey. But very likely he could go accept that player option, and then they could extend off of it if he wants to. So we'll see what happens here. Thanks, guys, for spamming those W's in here. Luca wants to know who my Super Bowl pick is. I used to watch a lot more football than I do. I'm telling you, I'm a New York Jets fan. I watch the first 2 games of every season, and then I give up on the year because I'm a New York Jets fan. Right now, if I had to pick who would win the Super Bowl, oh, man, I don't know. I kind of like what the Rams have got, but I don't know. I don't really feel good. I don't really watch football like that. And when I do watch football, I'm watching it more from like a viewership, fun fan standpoint than I am, and like entertainment than I am. Like when I watch basketball, I'm like sitting there analyzing every single little detail and making mental notes on pretty much every second of the game. So I don't do that as much in football. So your guess is probably way better than mine, if we're being honest about football. John here says Beal is a great player, really injury prone since he got the bag. Unfortunate for him because he can play. Yeah. Beal was a very good player. I don't want to downplay how good Beal was, especially in some of his early days next to Wall. But one of the things that made him so dynamic next to Wall was one of the best shot blocking guards ever and could really hold his own defensively. And not every backcourt member around Beal can kind of match up to that in other situations. And like we saw how next to a Devin Booker type who isn't a traditional point guard like John Wall was, how much of a worse fit that was. And I think Trae Young, the nice thing about him, unlike Beal, is you're getting a very clearly defined player. This guy's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. He's going to run a bunch of high ball screens. He's going to be able to facilitate in a number of different ways. And there's a lot of good stuff out of that you don't get from Bradley Beal because he's an off-ball guard player who wants to have the ball in his hands but isn't a traditional point guard. And there's more difficulties with that. And in fact, I think to a certain extent, you see that issue in Minnesota a little bit at certain points of their offense when you want to have the ball in Anthony Edwards' hands. He's a really great player. Anthony Edwards, one of the 10 best players in the world. But at the same time, that comes with some lumps because now your point guard situation is a little bit spottier because you want a point guard to help Ant, but maybe the point guard isn't going to have the ball a lot next to Ant, and then it complicates that because that's not a traditional point guard then. So I think shooting guards in general just kind of carry a little bit of weird weight to their role offensively sometimes. And again, it's not anything against the individual player or person, but just kind of how it is. Gideon here wants to know what the Mavs are getting for Anthony Davis. Again, the framework that I kind of think makes some sense. This is, again, just a framework, so don't be like, oh, you said this would be the exact deal. This is just kind of an idea. Like, you have to go into the trade machine, look at the actual salaries. There could be extra pieces, players, maybe some second-round picks, maybe even another first-round attachment in some way, shape, or form. But Porzingis returning to Dallas, because of the length of his contract, that's sensible. Risa Shea goes to Dallas, kind of an underwhelming first overall pick. And then the swap worst from the Spurs, which will be in the 20s this year, presumably, for Anthony Davis. So not really a great return. And you see how bad that Luka Doncic trade really was. Zach says, what's up, man? It's been a minute. Crazy that what trade values has become. Would have gotten them a young piece in 4 firsts a couple of years ago. Yeah, they honestly, just the entire situation here has not aged well for Atlanta because they haven't won around him. They haven't built the right kind of team around him, in my opinion. And it's honestly just very disappointing with what they've been unable to do. And there's a reason that there's been front office changes there in Atlanta over time. But I think Washington, their perspective, they've got a lot of the pieces that I do think make sense around Trey long term. One of them being Alex Sarr, a guy that the Hawks should have just taken instead of Risa Shea. And Zach, I do think, given how Davis's tenure with the Mavericks has gone, I do think this is about what you could expect for him. But again, if you look at it from an overall standpoint, it's obviously not good because of what they gave up to get Anthony Davis. Am I worried about the Trae Young and Trey Johnson backcourt from a defensive perspective? I definitely am, but I also think that the Wizards will lean into Trae Young and Keyshawn George together a lot. And I also think a Trae Young, Trey Johnson backcourt pairing is really fun on the offense. So I don't know. Part of it too is like Trey Johnson's just really young. He's really young. What I want the Wizards to do is kind of mirror what Cleveland has when it comes to having two bigs. I know the Cavs aren't having the best year this year, but like Sarr is one of those special moving 7-foot players who can defend out on the perimeter a bit, can hang around the rim, block shots, all the different defensive stuff you want a big man to do. So they have positional versatility there, where if they got another big, they got another center who could move his feet a little bit, you can play them both. And that's kind of what I want. I wanted them to take Derek Queen, keep him in that DMV area. They didn't do that, and that's okay. I like Trey Johnson. I was relatively high on him, but I was higher on Derek Queen going into the draft. That's who I wanted Washington to get, because I thought his pairing with Sarr was going to be really special. But that's now out of the question because Derek Queen plays for New Orleans. So Sarr didn't want to come to Atlanta. The nice thing is it's not free agency. It's a draft. And Atlanta could say, too bad, pack your bags. We got you for 4 years. And then, oh, by the way, you're a restricted free agent. So, yeah, go sign a 4-year offer sheet. You can hang out here for another 4 years. You could literally almost guarantee yourself 8 years of Alex Sarr, even if he didn't want to play there, or at least 7 years before trading him. So, it's just a mistake. And that mistake is going to cost them because now if they do decide to include Risa Shea in a package, he's not like the headliner of a package. He's a part of a package. Whereas Sarr, if he was in a package, he would be the headliner. He would be like, oh my gosh, we're trading Alex Sarr to get this star player, this star caliber guy. And Washington right now is looking at it saying, hey, we have Alex Sarr. Let's add to Alex Sarr. Let's go get an elite dynamic point guard like Trae Young. Like John's saying, Sarr is a stud. He's awesome. I have a video up on the channel breaking down Alex Sarr's play, especially earlier in the year. Here, okay, that's an interesting username we got there. Kuminga to Washington. To be honest, I would not touch Jonathan Kuminga with a 37.5-foot pole if I was a GM. I just don't think his value as a player tends to lead toward winning play, to be completely honest with you. Exactly. Like you're saying, it's just, I mean, we all knew that when the trade happened. That's why everyone thought Shams was hacked. But Derek Queen's really good. He finished third on my big board in 2025. I was pretty much the highest person on him across all of the NBA draft community. I like Derek Queen pretty much more than everybody, and he played very well to start the year. He's had some really great games. Obviously, some games where he struggled a little bit. Hasn't played great tonight against Atlanta, but Brian here says, love to Atlanta analysts. I think the trade sucks too this far, but the best team does not always win the championship. Here Donald saying teams like Thunder, Pistons, Spurs, Lakers, Nuggets, Knicks, and Rockets are consistently near the top of discussions. And a lot of them are very well built or took advantage of a team along the way. Thunder took advantage of the Clippers with how hindsight played out. Shea, of course, is the main reason for that. If they don't get Shea in that Paul George trade, then we're not even talking about the Thunder really like this. But they have the MVP of the league from a trade where no one even talked about Shea in that trade. In fact, my best friend's a Clippers fan. He was devastated when they traded Shea. That was his favorite player his rookie season. That's the year he picked the Clippers as his favorite team, and he was just devastated that they traded Shea in general. So definitely a lot to talk about with that group of teams. But thoughts on the Raptors, what they should do this trade deadline. I will be posting trade guides. Now, I know I'm a little bit behind schedule this year. Usually my trade guides start in the middle of December. A couple weeks behind, but trade guides will start coming out and start talking about more and more when all that stuff comes out. Okay. John here says, I wanted Wizards to trade up to get Queen after we took Johnson, but Riley looks like he'll be good, so we'll see. Yeah, I wasn't the highest on Will Riley. Obviously, I'm hoping. This is one thing, too, with draft evaluation. You have to be critical. You have to look at players and pick who you think is going to succeed at a high level, who you might want to fade a little bit, all that stuff. But even the players that I don't expect to have elite NBA careers or 15-year careers or anything like that, I want to be wrong so bad about those guys. I want the players that I'm lower on to succeed, prove me wrong, because then first of all, I can learn from it. But secondly, it would be extremely lame to be rooting against 19-year-old kids who are trying to live out their dream and play in the NBA. So the more good players you have in the NBA, the better. So every year I hope that there's 60 players who are drafted that are awesome because that would be great. That's great for the NBA. Burps here says move Ochai and whatever for a second center or just get AD or Sabonis and move Ochai for a bag of chips. Talking about the Raptors, we'll see what they do. One of the biggest things about the Raptors this year is how good their bench has been. And it's funny because they have one of the highest paid starting fives in the league. We'll see how they go about it. We'll see if Quickly is someone who could possibly get moved. But I don't know. His salary is huge. So we will see. Wearing a suit while taking I don't even know what that says. But Wearing here says Wizards are going to get Levine or DeRozan, aren't they? No, I don't think so. I do not think Washington will get either of those two guys. I would be completely shocked. John here says Queen is a DMV kid, and Bub and him are friends. Would have been cool in DC. Definitely would have been. I would have really loved to have Derek Queen to be a Wizard. That would have been sweet. Gideon here wants to know what's my ranking on Peterson, AJ, and Boozer. As of right now, of course, nothing finalized. We've still got 2.5 months, 3 months almost of the college basketball season yet. So this is not a firm, like, hey, lock this in stone and hold it against me forever. But I've been long holding the position that Boozer would be the guy I take first, Peterson would be the guy I take second, and AJ would be the guy I pick third. But I do think they are all tier 1 caliber type of players, okay? So I don't, even with that ranking, I don't want you to go, oh my gosh, you're so low on AJ DeBonsa. Dude, I think AJ DeBonsa is going to be an all-NBA caliber player. He's going to be fantastic. So don't take what I just said as a vindication on any of those three guys. I think all three of them are elite. For me, I really love Boozer's processing as a passing big man, his outlet passing, his ability to pass off the top of the key, make decisions, feed low post, have him go to work. If you double team him, he's going to make the right play. For me, I just value that so much. So there's a lot to love about all three of them, though. DeBonsa's ability to bend, he's extremely coordinated and really great motor skills, some physical tools, balance, all that kind of stuff is just off the charts with him. On his ability to create driving lines and finish around the rim and from the mid-range area, I think are all kind of early indicators of star potential and just an elite NBA career. And then obviously we haven't gotten to see as much Peterson this year at Kansas, but when he's been on the floor, he's been just stellar. So I'm just hoping he can get healthy and stay healthy for his NBA career. I try not to factor too much about injury because at the end of the day, it is kind of a crapshoot when you're talking about, okay, how is this guy going to stay healthy? I don't know the future. I can't predict the next 10 years of this guy's physical health. I'm not a doctor. Obviously, it's a big part of the decision, though, so you have to at least consider it. But at the end of the day, I don't know if 3 years from now, Darren Peterson will have played 82 games all 3 seasons or 28 games all 3 seasons. And, if I had that kind of foresight, I would be probably doing some fortune telling and not live streaming about the NBA. But very happy to be doing what I'm doing. Ryan here says, what do you think it would take for the Spurs to land Trey Murphy? 2 firsts, probably. I don't necessarily expect that to happen. If I was New Orleans, I would be at least okay with moving Trey Murphy if I got one really good value first and then another first-round pick just for flexibility purposes. So that's where I would kind of be. But again, just recapping for those who are joining, I just think Washington here. First of all, I gave them an A+. I gave the Wizards an A+. I gave the Hawks a to be determined grade, but also in the present moment a C-. Corey Kispert's a really good player. I think underrated. That's why I'm going to give them a C+ or a C- and not an F, because I do think Kispert can be a part of a good team and a good context moving forward. The issue here, though, you turned a 4-time All-Star into CJ McCollum and Kispert. Like, you just didn't do very well. And that 4-time All-Star is 27 and has been the heartbeat of your team and the guy who puts fans in seats for you. I don't love it. I really don't. But very good stuff here from Washington, especially when you look at the possibility of them maybe getting a top 3 pick this year. You have Trae Young, Trey Johnson, Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, and then maybe one of Boozer, Peterson, or DeBonsa. Really, really great stuff. Average, someone says, congratulations, DC fans. Welcome, everyone, to the stream, by the way. Terry here says, I like that Caleb Wilson guy. He's definitely very solid, some really good tools. He could fit in Washington pretty well as well. Zach here says, what do you think the Bucks will do at the deadline? Clear urgency, but lack of any flexibility. Yeah, I mean, I think last year we saw, the addition of Kyle Kuzma was a great example of how, they're kind of desperate to make a move if they can make one, and not necessarily one that's going to propel them forward in a huge fashion. I think just if you look at what Milwaukee has on their roster and from a draft pick perspective, where they fumbled pretty much every situation they've been able to try and work with, this was predictable. I've been talking about Milwaukee having one of the worst futures in the league for a long time. And the inevitable is coming where Giannis asked for a trade. And, I hate to say that, but that's just the reality. That's the reality here. Importantly, if I don't think this is going to happen, but if Milwaukee were to trade Giannis this season, he would probably end up in Atlanta. Okay. Point blank. He would probably end up in Atlanta, especially with Trae Young gone. Just saying. Zach, you're funny for that. Giannis's time with the Bucks is fading fast. It definitely is. Mitch here says, am I crazy for thinking Pistons should prioritize Dennis Jenkins over Ivy, especially after tonight's performance? I'm still a huge believer in Ivy. I really, really love Jaden Ivey in his draft class. And I still believe last year, first of all, was a great indicator. When he was healthy to start the year, he was playing the best basketball of his life. And I really think when he's fully healthy and he gets to really showcase who he is in the right situation, right setting, he's going to be an all-star caliber guy. I really do believe that. Now, obviously, we'll see how he gets healthy, all that stuff. That there's a lot that's going to lead into that. Obviously, maybe that doesn't actually come to fruition because of injuries and stuff. But if he's healthy and in the right system, I think he can just be brilliant. So. Not your average 10K. Thank you for hopping into the stream once again this year. He says, bad trade. Trey is stupidly wanting to go to an even worse team who's not going to win much. They're not going to win much in the short term, but I do think their long-term future does look pretty good. John here says, AJ Mitchell, Reed Shepard, Stephon Castle, Matas Buzelis, Alex Sarr. It's funny how everyone besides me said the 2024 draft sucked. If you go back to all the draft evaluators, they're all saying, oh, this terrible draft, weak draft, this, that, and the other thing. Looks like there's a lot of good players from that draft. In fact, AJ Mitchell, I had a lottery grade on him. He went in the second round. I couldn't believe it, but that's what happened. There's a lot of good players from that draft, and that was very predictable. Very, very predictable. If you go back to any of my coverage that year, I talked about this at length about how everyone's hating on this draft class, but there's going to be a lot of players who contribute to winning a lot of games, and we're seeing that. Reed Shepherd's been an absolute flamethrower for Houston. Stephon Castle's looking like a young beast for San Antonio. Buzelis has a lot of awesome moments. Sarr's been unbelievable for Washington this year. And then AJ Mitchell, should be the front runner arguably for Sixth Man of the Year. So do I think Ace Bailey would have made a difference in Washington? No, I think that the Wizards were very lucky to not have him available at their pick, is what I'll say. I had Ace Bailey significantly lower on my board than Trey Johnson. I had him significantly lower than a lot of other players that they should have, I would have preferred for them to draft, including Derek Queen. What would the Hawks have to give up to get Giannis? Well, they have the first part of the deal would be that pick that they got from New Orleans, because it is the most favorable of the Bucks and Pelicans pick. So if you're Milwaukee, hey, you can get your own pick back possibly, and maybe it could be number one in a year that has Cam Boozer or AJ DeBonsa or Darren Peterson. Even if it's not number one, maybe it ends up number 4 and you get Caleb Wilson. It's not a bad starting point to a rebuild. The Hawks would probably also give up, there'd be salary in there, whether that's Porzingis or possibly McCollum, which I think there's going to be some difficulties here because of the timing of stuff in terms of aggregating salaries together. But you could get to 3-team compositions, I'm sure, where you figure something out, make a trade, and then expand off of that. But there's a lot of stuff that I think Atlanta could work with Risa Shea. They could work with a couple future draft picks as well. I don't believe they're able to trade that Spurs swap this year if they also trade that Pelicans first. I need to look at that again. I'm going to have a trade guy coming out soon, so we'll talk about that in the Hawks trade guide probably and the Bucks trade guide about Giannis. So make sure you guys stay tuned for all of those videos. Again, I'm hoping to start fully recording, getting content back out soon. Again, my voice has been a little under the weather. I'm sure you guys can tell even the difference from the start of the stream to now in terms of raspiness, and especially since it's been coaching season, I've been yelling during games and yelling during practice and stuff. So my voice has just been really kind of struggling a little bit. So I hope you guys, understand at least why I've taken a short break from recording, even though I really badly want to. I love what I do. So I appreciate you guys a ton. I am going to end the stream here. Before I do so, though, I do want to say real quickly, I just wanted to share my faith with everyone real quick. This is something I want to do better in 2026, is sharing my faith, especially with my audience. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I'm very grateful that he died on the cross for my sins. Of course, obviously changed my life drastically. I have salvation through him. And I just want to use my platform a little bit to share my faith. So again, if you're in disagreement with me, I'm not going to try and push you, force you or anything. I just want to try and be a positive light if I can, and share love in this world. So that's really the last thing I want to share with you guys. Again, I really am so thankful for you all. I really love what I do. I love the platform that you guys have given me specifically. I'm very, very lucky to have such a great audience. So again, I'm very thankful for you guys. Really do appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you go follow over on Twitter if you haven't already, and then tweet at me. I respond a ton. I'm sure a lot of you guys already know that. If you tweet at me, I try my best to stay on top of my mentions, respond when I can. So I appreciate you guys big time. Hope you guys all have a really great night. Again, what a great start to 2026 here with a big trade for Trae Young going to Washington. And if you're a Wizards fan, I think you got to be hyped. And if you're an Atlanta Hawks fan, you got to be saying, what's next for us? Appreciate you guys all so much. Thank you all for hopping in here, flashing some of these comments up on the stream right now. Again, just a huge amount of appreciation on my part for you guys. It's awesome that I can hit start stream and all of a sudden there's 300 plus people just immediately jumping in regardless. So I'm always so thankful for you guys. Again, appreciate all of the support you guys have shown over the years, and also the kind of, care and forgiveness and stuff too that I haven't been able to post in the last couple of weeks. So thank you guys all so much. Again, I'll be live for 2026 NBA trade deadline. Trade guides are going to start flowing out on the channel here very, very quickly as well. Terry in the chat, thank you again. Appreciate you, my man. You guys all have a very nice night. God bless, and I will catch you guys in the very next Utility Sports video.